This is Anarchism in 10 minutes. In order to understand anarchism, the first thing we're going to do is to point out where anarchism would be located on the political scale. This is the commonly used scale of economic left and right, but there's also another dimension to it. This political scale shows not only economic left and right, but also social authoritarian and libertarian. This leaves us with roughly 4 fields on the scale: the authoritarian left, the authoritarian right, the libertarian right, and the libertarian left, which is the one we'll be focusing on in this video, as this is where we'll find the anarchist ideology. In order to understand how this scale works, we can for example see that Barack Obama and John McCain both are found in the authoritarian right field, while for example Ralph Nader will be found in the libertarian left field. Near the authoritarian limit we find Adolf Hitler, while Milton Friedman would be in the libertarian right field and Joseph Stalin in the upper authoritarian left field. It is on the very bottom of this scale that we find anarchism and anarcho-capitalism. Anarchism is one out of 2 ideologies categorized under libertarian socialism, where one is syndicalism or anarcho-syndicalism, which rather than being an actual ideology, more is a practice of labor union organization. The other ideology being anarchism. Anarchists strive to abolish both the state and capitalism, as anarchists see the state as a capitalist institution, an institution whose primary goal is to uphold the class society, that is, the power of the corporate and political elite over the masses. Anarchists do acknowledge, though, that the state sometimes will be pushed to act against the direct interest of the elite, for instance through financing healthcare, dental care, or upholding the laws of 8 hours working day, which is in the direct interest of the masses. But anarchists knows that a government with power of providing these things also has the power of taking them away, and thus anarchists don't rely on the promise that the state will be just, a fact that anarchists often has experienced at first hand. For instance, in Chicago the 1st of May 1886, anarchists on strike demonstrated demanding the right to 8 hours working day. At Haymarket Square they were met by 200 armed policemen, where suddenly an explosion is heard from a side street. In the following chaos, police and anarchists started shooting at each other. 7 cops and 21 anarchist workers were injured. 8 anarchists and strike leaders were arrested on the suspect of having created the bomb that caused the explosion. 4 of them were hanged. 1 committed suicide in jail. The punishment of 2 were reduced to life in prison. A few years later, courts found that the sentenced anarchists in fact all were innocent, and the 3 remaining survivors were released. This day has come to be remembered as the Haymarket Massacre, and the reason the 1st of May still is celebrated as the International Workers' Day. The most common symbol for anarchism is the circled A. Few knows that the origin of this symbol comes from Pierre Joseph Proudhon, who said that anarchy is order. The A stands for anarchy and the circle stands for order. The goal of anarchism is what Karl Marx decided to call communism. I know what you're thinking. That doesn't make any sense, does it? Marx said that the definition of communism is a state and class-free society. That is, a society where power is dealt equally and where there is no government. Anarchists of the time agreed that it seemed like a fair goal, but anarchists could not agree with the communists on how this goal would be achieved. Anarchist Mikhail Bakunin argued that the state should be abolished. Meanwhile, Marx preferred a big government to ensure the continuing development of what he claimed eventually would lead to this state and class-free society. It comes as little surprise that Marx and Bakunin could not agree, and eventually the anarchists were thrown out of the First International. This dispute between communists and anarchists has lasted till this day. Marx argued that the anarchist Paris Commune could not defend itself from the outside enemy. And when Vladimir Lenin eventually took power of the Russian Revolution and declared himself the dictator, this would only bring fuel to the flames of this dispute. And during a speech, female anarchist Fanny Kaplan fired 3 bullets towards the dictator. Kaplan was of course tortured and put to death by the regime. The Soviet regime would make sure to beat down anarchist uprisings, often using the Red Army for this. Although being a socialist ideology, anarchism should not be confused with what we usually think of when talking about socialism. In libertarian socialism, government is not a representative of the people. People represent themselves. Anarchy comes from the Greek anarchos, which translates without ruler, which does not mean without rules. It is a common misconception that there are no rules in an anarchist society. Anarchists consider a ruler to be a person who stands above the law. It would be naive to think that, for instance, a government guilty of war crimes ever could be prosecuted as war criminals, as they stand above the courts in the hierarchy of power. Anarchists also believe in equality. This does not mean that everyone should own an equal amount of things. For instance, if you like to collect old cars and I like to collect video games, it would make no sense that I was given half of your garage. Instead, this rather means that everyone is entitled to an equal amount of power in the society. The anarchist society is dependent on participation. Without participation, the anarchist society would not be able to exist. This can be done through direct democracy. Yes, the people themselves even make the laws, and therefore it is impossible to say exactly how an anarchist version of a constitution would look like, since it would be completely dependent on the people of the society. An example of this is the Danish town of Christiania, whose highest authority is the Grand Meeting, where all people are welcome to participate. The town does not allow cops and has 4 rules: no heavy drugs, no weapons, no violence, and no trade with buildings or apartments. In the Spanish Revolution, where 10 million people participated, many anarchist collectives even practiced currency-free economies. Liberals argue that the state possesses an illegit form of power. Anarchists agree to this. Communists argue that landlords and owners of the production possess an illegit form of power. Anarchists also agree to this. Anarchists are, however, the only ones to demand full power to the people themselves. Eventually we reach the unavoidable question: can you guarantee that it works? And no, of course not. But this is the true beauty of an anarchist society, as in case it wouldn't work, if it turned out to be a complete disaster, the people could simply vote away the anarchist system, and overnight it would have ceased to exist. And that is probably the best thing about an anarchist society.
I believe!